2. What's up? Welcome in. It's Foxboro Rush. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Balekji. Trav, how we doing today, my man?
You know I'm doing good, man. I'm here with you talking football. What else is better, my friend?
Could not agree more. We got a packed show today. It's going to be a Tom Brady heavy show, and we're going to do this on the heels of him talking with Stephen A. Smith, hour-long conversation. Honestly, it was awesome. It was over at Fanatics Fest, which was a cool setup for sports fans. I'm a little bit on like the side of anything with Michael Rubin. I'm like, what's going on here? You make crap jerseys. You have that weird all white party. You pay for your friends. The Fanatics Fest, at its surface, a Comic-Con for sports fan is cool. And it got us something cool like this. Stephen A. sitting down with Tom Brady, one of the biggest names in sports media, with the GOAT of the NFL, of course. So we're going to talk about Tom Brady and his thought process on the workload rookie quarterbacks are expected to take on and how they're rushed to start and how that can coincide with what happens with Gerard Mayo and Drake May's timeline. He also gave his top 5 quarterbacks. We'll go through those. We get into Tua Tagovailoa and his conversation where he went in depth about the difference of treatment between Brian Flores and Mike McDaniels. And then we have our Ness and Mount Rushmore of cornerbacks. We'll get into all that and more. Let's start with Tom Brady and what he thinks about rookie quarterbacks and how they shouldn't start right away. Basically went on a rant how they're not being developed the right way anymore, how he thinks it's a tragedy, and I quote, a tragedy that we are forcing these rookies to play early. And what Tom Brady pointed out, Travis, was when he was at Michigan, it was a pro-style offense. He learned that for 5 years. He went from a 7th string to a 3rd string, then to a starter, and how it was all about development, hammering home the value of taking time, how much time it goes into learning and developing to getting into complex football. But now he says everything is dumbed down to get these quarterbacks in the game as quick as possible. So, as we look at, and we're right here in our backyard of New England, where you are a guy that says Drake May week 1, the GOAT is telling you, Travis, calm down, take your time, don't rush him into that starting spot. But this is beyond what you think in Drake May. What do you think of his outlook that, hey, looking at the NFL landscape right now where we see guys like CJ Stroud who took the league by fire, but then also guys like Caleb Williams that have all this expectations, all this pressure on them. What do you think of Tom Brady saying you're rushing them and football is being worse off by rushing these rookie quarterbacks onto the field?
George, I'd like to preface my comments by saying you know how I feel about Tom Brady. He is the GOAT. I love him. He's Captain America, but he's wrong here. And to use the word tragedy is so dramatic, Tom. Just relax, okay? First of all, quarterback development has evolved from when you came up, Tom. It has. There's never been more 7-on-7 camps than there are now. There's never been more quarterback coaches just there to develop that position. There's never been more, camps and dedicated resources, specialty type things just for quarterbacks and other skill positions. But we're just talking about quarterbacks today. It's a different time, George. I mean, I'm sure when Tom grew up, he played multiple sports. In fact, I know he did. He's a really good baseball player too. Same with me. When I came up, there were different sports with different seasons. Nowadays, true quarterbacks that are kids play quarterback year round. They're ready to go. It's the same in basketball. It's the same in baseball. It's the same in all these sports. So what happens is these kids quite literally go to whatever the next phase of their game is sooner and better and more equipped than they did back in the day. Tom's right now sounds like an old guy yelling at clouds. Like, bro, relax. These quarterbacks are more prepared at this stage where they are now than you were at the same stage. Now, we understand what Tom Brady evolved to, and we also understand why he's probably sensitive to that. He's a guy who was developed. I get it. But I just think now these quarterbacks are more prepared than Tom Brady ever was. And also, they need to be developed. He's not wrong in saying that piece of it. But Tom, to say it's a tragedy that all these quarterbacks start as rookies is just flat out wrong. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels should be starting day one, and they're going to ball out. And we all know it. Drake May, in my opinion, is going to be starting week 1. I know you and I disagree on that, but we're going to get to Drake May sooner than later. But he could be starting. Bo Nix could be starting week 1. And if J.J. McCarthy didn't get hurt, he could be starting week 1. So Tom just needs to relax. I think all these kids are going to be just fine, whether they start this year, halfway through the year, start next year, whenever it is. But to say it's a tragedy, George, I mean, come on, bro. Tom, you got to relax, man. You got to chill out.
I think he's looking at the development of the position, but also you could be like the old head yelling at the clouds of like, I earned my spot. 7th string to 3rd string to starter. I was a backup my rookie season. I didn't play, but I worked hard and I earned my way, but it valued me to learn the game. And it definitely did for him. He was a game manager. Those first 3 Super Bowl wins by Tom Brady. He had so many Hall of Famers opposite of him on the Patriots defense. Willie McGinnis, Richard Seymour, Ty Law, Rodney Harrison. And I'm saying whether they're in the Hall of Fame or not, Hall of Fame caliber players on those defenses. Teddy Bruschi, the list goes on, right?
Right.
What I look back to, and we'll get into the recent names, but I'm going to go back to 2008. Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco, both first-round picks, both started since they were rookies in 2008. Go to 2009. Matt Stafford started right away, wasted a lot of good football on Detroit before he's finally traded to the Rams. But then Mark Sanchez, Josh Freeman, those are guys that had to start. Sanchez just wasn't smart on Sundays. But I think it's with these guys getting rushed into the starting spot. If you give them a year or 2 to learn the game, maybe Sanchez works out. So I think he's looking at how many quarterbacks don't pan out at the next level, how many quarterbacks that are high draft picks that just flame out right off the bat. And I think that's what he's pointing to. It's a double-edged sword with what he says as well. Because now if we go more recent, like I want to go up to the guys, I'm looking at 2020. Joe Burrow started every game until he tore up his knee. Tua Tagovailoa, that was a toxic situation, as we'll talk about later. But Brian Flores not starting him, putting in Ryan Fitzpatrick, yanking Fitzpatrick for Tua, going back and forth. Justin Herbert, he wasn't starting until the team doctor for the Chargers accidentally stuck Tyrod Taylor with a needle into his lung, and then he never looked back. All right, cool. Let's go to 2021. Trevor Lawrence, credit to him for starting in that toxic situation that he was with Urban Meyer and making it through now with Doug Peterson. But Zach Wilson, I mean, he was just dumb. Started from day one, number 2 overall pick. I just think he can't grasp NFL football at all because he makes awful mistakes. I don't know if sitting him would have helped him out too. Trey Lance, never healthy. Justin Fields, started as a rookie in Chicago. I could see what he's saying hurting him because I look at Chicago, I look at New York, and those weren't situations that were ready for that rookie quarterback they drafted. New England isn't ready for the rookie quarterback that they drafted. The offensive line's not ready. The receiving talent around him isn't ready. It's not going to be winning football. So I think what Tom Brady is saying is, I'd rather have a guy like Drake May. I'd rather have a guy when he was in Chicago like Justin Fields, sit, learn the NFL game, learn everything that goes into it. Then year 2, when your ducks are in a row and everything is set up to at least support him and set him up for success, that's when you go with these rookie quarterbacks. Some guys can value sitting. Look at 2023. Bryce Young should have never played behind that offensive line with that awful receiving core. That's a year lost. Anthony Richardson, I said it to you, Trav. You love him, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you for loving Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
He needs to learn how to not take hits in the NFL before he plays. And maybe he learned it, but you lost a year of him. Now look at 2024. Caleb Williams, he's starting. Jaden Daniels, he's starting. Drake May will start at some point this season. Michael Penix, if Kirk Cousins can't go because of his Achilles, will play. You mentioned J.J. McCarthy. You mentioned Bo Nix. A guy like Spencer Rattler, I think sitting for a year will be great for him. But it's a two-edged sword of, hey, these guys are being rushed, but it's also these GMs and these front offices going, that is a cost control contract. We need to get as much out of those 4 or 5 years where we're not paying that quarterback so we can field the rest of the team. So if they're ready now, that's when it comes on to these offensive coordinators. And now we'll get into the second part of what he said, where everything's being dumbed down to get the quarterback on the field as quick as possible. Well, yeah, they need to dumb it down because they need these guys to get out there and play football as quick as possible. The best offense is in the NFL. The Dolphins, Mike McDaniels. The Lions, Ben Johnson. The Packers, Matt LaFleur. The 49ers, Kyle Shanahan. The Rams are Sean McVay, but that's a veteran quarterback running that show. Right. What's making it work with the Dolphins, the Lions, the Packers, the 49ers, how a guy like a 7th-round pick like Brock Purdy can win, or Jared Goff, who is a game manager but is now flourishing, or Jordan Love, who did sit 3 years but had the year he had, because those systems are so quarterback-friendly. Go out, you're going to throw the ball here. It has to be about timing. It has to be about being on schedule. You need to make 2 quick reads and get the ball out, throw it anticipatory throws because your receiver will be there. They're dumbing it down to get these guys on the field. They want these guys on the field so quick, Travis, because it's all about managing that cap. And if the quarterback is cheap, you can put more around him.
Yeah, listen, I was actually covering a team in Washington that ran a college quarterback for a college system for a quarterback named RG3, if you remember that. And that was Kyle Shanahan calling plays back then with LaFleur and McVay and the rest of them. And they pretty much ran the Baylor offense that RG3 ran in college. They did that in the NFL with a few wrinkles here and there. And we saw George RG3 have initial success. And then over time, we know the rest of that story, right? So I think you bring up a great point that Brady talked about of, obviously the game's been dumbed down for these young kids and all that. Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But that's also the evolution of the game. We didn't have the spread in the NFL either, when Brady was coming up. Like these things, that's why I'm saying he sounds too much like old man yelling at clouds to me here. Like, it's like, bro, you sound almost like Belichick in a way where it's like, look, if you're going to be talking about these games and we're going to be watching you do play-by-play and all this stuff, and you're going to be talking all this football, what we can't do is every week go back into time. Like, come on, Tom, like the game's moving fast and changing. You have to change with it. So I just don't love any of these comments at all. Like, oh, we're dumbing it down. And like I told you, like I can't get past the tragedy. It's a tragedy that rookie quarterbacks play. Bro, come on. No, it's not. These kids can play. Let's go. I want to see them all get in there. So I disagree with him. I love Tom. I disagree with this across the board.
There are times and places when quarterbacks are rushing to the starting spot, right? Yeah. Like I went through a few of them. And it's rare to have a talent that can overcome a bad situation. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes now can overcome a bad situation. Joe Burrow overcame a bad situation. Yeah. Like the offensive line was terrible. The Bengals suck. They're cheap. He might not have his best wide receiver week one.
That's right.
Because they're so damn cheap in Cincinnati. Even Justin Herbert overcoming bad situations with Brandon Staley, still getting to playoff games, still winning games, still being a top quarterback, and with a really bad offensive line. But then what do you see these teams do? What did the Chargers do? They drafted Justin Herbert in 2020. 2021 was Rashawn Slater. I could be mixing up the years, but they went Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson out of Boston College, and now Joe Alt. They invested 3 top picks. So I think it's about, they wanted to sit him, but their hand was forced. So when he says it's a tragedy, it's because they draft these rookie quarterbacks and they're putting them out there before they have solid receivers or a solid offensive line. Now, the opposite of that is, look at what Mac Jones was his rookie year. A Pro Bowl alternate, a Pro Bowl replacement quarterback. And then Matt Patricia and Joe Judge ruined that for him in year 2 and year 3, even with Bill O'Brien there. It is, I think, more tragedy of these young quarterbacks. And this is all of sports, man. You could talk to so many rookies. What's the situation? What's the ownership? Who's the head coach? What's the front office like? Who drafted you? Who's buying into you? Who is supporting you? And if they're not, and they don't care, like we saw happen with Mac Jones, like what was with Tua his first 2 years. There's the value of sitting some guys. Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre when he came in. Tom Brady sat behind, of course, Drew Bledsoe. Peyton Manning started right away, and he looked terrible. Set records for interceptions in a season, and then he figured it out. So I think it's twofold, and I get it. But with the dumbing it down, man, these are the best offenses in the league. It's not dumbing down. It's giving your quarterback gimme plays. Then if you're a top quarterback, a Patrick Mahomes, a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow, who can freelance, a Josh Allen, what I believe Drake May can do, playoff schedule, off platform, make those throws. And then Lamar Jackson, who went from a run-heavy offense, right, where it was all about running the ball, then evolved into a great passer now and entering year 2 in a Todd Monken offense, who's evolved to being one of the best passers, one of the best quarterbacks because of that. That's where it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Listen, I almost think about the AAU when we talk about this. Think about AAU basketball for a second. I mean, it has exploded and grown so much over the years that it's sort of watered down basketball. And the reason why, George, is because all these great players have gone through multiple coaches, multiple voices, multiple teachers of the game, or not in some cases. Sometimes you just let kids go out there and play and let their talent shine. You don't even really coach them. I bring that up because it's happening in football as well, particularly at the quarterback position. And this is probably what has Tom upset again, let me go back. It's just the reality of football and the quarterback position in 2024 and beyond. We ain't going backwards. But back in the day when Tom and others came up, you maybe had one or two coaches before you got to college. You had a Pop Warner coach. You had maybe like your dad helping out, or, and then once you got to like middle school age and you moved up in Pop Warner, you have another coach. But that was it. Now these kids have 3 coaches a summer, bro. Like, you got a quarterback guy, you got a, so I think that's some of this too, is these pro coaches have had to adjust. And bro, we don't have the time to develop these players like we used to. And they've had 1,000 voices in terms of coaching in their lives since they were, yay high to a grasshopper. So by the time they get to the pros, you can't have the old school coach of, this is my system, this is how I run it. If you can't run it, you got to go. These coaches now, George, they have to adjust to the personnel. They have to, okay, what's your strength? Oh, okay, Lamar Jackson, it can run. He's fast. And he's not the most accurate, but he could throw a great deep ball. He could throw a great deep ball. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to show off those attributes that a Lamar Jackson has, or an Anthony Richardson you brought up, or who has. It's just not the same as when Tom came up. When Tom came up, it was, this is my system, this is how we run it. I don't care who you are. If you can't run it, you're out of here. Those days have changed. They're gone. Tom needs to get with it, man.
There is value of sitting, learning the speed, learning the game, learning the preparation, sitting behind a veteran. But the competitiveness at the position, I mean, even look at this draft class we have right now. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler.
Right.
All those guys, 7 quarterbacks, I believe can play at the next level. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be good. That's based off the college tape. He loves his tunnel screens, right? Loves the short passes. But he's with Sean Payton. It could work out. J.J. McCarthy, people are going to knock him. He didn't throw the ball a ton, right? Michigan didn't trust him. He's in a great situation with the Vikings. It's now about the situations that put it. I like Spencer Rattler, but I think that's a guy that benefits from sitting a year. I hate where he is being down with the Saints, but still he can sit. It's also, they got to play because it's competitiveness of the position and the league now. It's how many guys. You said it with all the 7-on-7 camps, everybody coming out.
Yeah.
It's what it can be. The dumbing down of the offenses, though, you know what? It's advanced. Everything's more advanced now. Offensive coordinators are smarter. The strategy is to it. The defenses are just as complex. And it's the same Tom Brady that complained about all these rules in the NFL now where it's, offensive players and defensive players, they don't get any help. You benefit from those rules, right? They let him hit. You want to get into who he ranked as his top 5 quarterbacks now?
Yeah, let's do it.
So he listed his top 5, and this was funny too. I watched the video. Number 1, this is no duh, Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, he put Josh Allen.
Okay.
Number 3, Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Number 4, Joe Burrow.
Okay.
And then he struggled to get to number 5, and Stephen A. Smith threw out Aaron Rodgers. He goes, yeah, of course, Aaron Rodgers.
Wow.
I go Justin Herbert in that 5 spot. People are going to rip on him. They can make the comments about clutch and all that. Again, I'm talking about situation, how bad it was since Herbert came into the league in 2020, dealing with a moron head coach in Brandon Staley, dealing with Anthony Lynn, who sucked as a head coach too. Back-to-back bad head coaches. Another new system. We will see what happens with them now, with having John Harbaugh there, who can build a good culture, who has done it wherever he's been. But he overcame that. And, man, I'm watching it. And what I see, that is an elite talent with athleticism, arm strength, everything. My top 5, I keep it the same in that same order, honestly. Maybe I'll put Joe Burrow at 3 and put Lamar Jackson back to 4. But with Lamar's athleticism and just how good of a passer he's become. I understand him at 3, but to me, it'd be Herbert at 5.
All right. Let me agree with you with Herbert because I'm with you there. You know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers, and I don't even want to go off. I'm in a good mood here. I don't want to talk about Aaron stinking Rodgers. So even Brady had to be like kind of reminded, like, don't forget about Rodgers. He's like, oh, yeah, Rodgers. So I'm with you. I'll go Herbert at 5 as well. I'm going to move Burrow to 2. And again, this is the only guy, George, who has stood toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and beat him. So the only thing that I have seen that can beat Mahomes is Joe Burrow. So I have to go 2 there. I will then keep Lamar at 3 and move Josh Allen to 4. He just turns the ball over. I'm a big Josh Allen fan. I've defended him every step of the way. When people say he turns the ball over too much, you and I have had this discussion. And I'm like, look, this guy hasn't had a run game since he's been in the NFL. He is a run game. Now he loses his top weapon, even though he's a pain in the arse. He still lost him in Stephon Diggs. So he doesn't have the same weaponry he had, George. He has a defensive-minded head coach who I think's on the hot seat. No one's talking about it, but I think he is.
No, he is.
So I'm going to move Allen to 4. So I'll go Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, Herbert. Screw Rodgers.
Herbert at 5.
Yeah, get Rodgers out of here.
Josh Allen, 21 passing touchdowns his career in the playoffs, just 4 interceptions in the playoffs. So, yeah, all that talk on him. I do put Burrow 3. He's made it to Super Bowl. He's overcome bad situations, doesn't lay an egg in big games. You said it. He's a guy that beats Patrick Mahomes. He is a guy where there's an actual rivalry in the AFC. And as great as talented as Lamar Jackson has been, he becomes a pumpkin in the playoffs, man. Big stages. And this past game was weird. Todd Monken didn't want to run the ball, just took the ball, put it in Lamar's hands, taking away strength of this offense. It was odd. With an elite defense, too. A defense that shut out Patrick Mahomes in the second half. But Lamar, you got to make plays, man. There's just like the simplicity of it when it comes to sports, like not to overthink it. And I'm someone that uses PFF and I know how to use it and how to understand it, where I don't look at the numbers and go, look at this grading. And that's why you can't dry hump stats to make a point because that's boring. Like there's just watching it. And then when you go to these guys, to Patrick Mahomes, to Joe Burrow, to Josh Allen, go make a play. Are you just making winning plays? And when it becomes clutch and you need to step up and elevate your team, do you do that? Mahomes, Allen, Burrow do that. We're yet to see Lamar do it in the playoffs, man. We're yet to see it. He could break through and do it. He's still young, but we're yet to see him do that. And that's where it holds back on that. I did like this talk from Tom Brady. I think it's always fascinating to hear from him. I do like how passionate he can get with these points. The one with dumbing down offenses, but also pushing rookie quarterbacks. I just think it's so interesting with the climate that the Patriots are in right now. Because remember, Gerard Mayo said, coming out of the spring, Jacoby Brissett is our starting quarterback, but it's a competition. And then he said, Gerard Mayo on Greg Hill the other day, there's a development plan. We're going to stick to it. It may not be sexy. It may be boring. People may hate it, but it's the right thing to do right now for an organization. There's 2 sides to every decision to make where they're the team's cost control and everything we spoke about. You said it, like, go start Drake May week 1. The best way to learn is playing real football. But organization long-term, Gerard Mayo has to sit back and look at his offensive line, look at his receivers that aren't getting separation, and look at this bad team all around and go, we cannot mess up the next 4 years because we're rushing him in year 1. It's not black and white. Everything's gray. Everything is gray in the NFL. I think it was cool to hear Tom Brady, just his opinion on that, especially with the situation the Patriots are in right now, man. Still searching for his replacement. Because they rush guys. Let's get into Tua's talk now, his comments on Brian Flores. Did you watch the interview he had with Dan LeBatard?
I did not, but after you told me, because you said LeBatard's so good at interviewing, it was smooth how he asked Tua, I went and watched the clip, and I saw exactly what you meant. I mean, he made Tua so comfortable, and he spilled all the beans, you know?
Right? That's what, like, I watch guys and I watch how they interview. Like Tom Rinaldi
Yeah.
is someone I look up to.
Yeah.
Maria Taylor, Scott Van Pelt, Marty Smith.
Yeah.
But
All good.
watching LeBatard in that setting, how he sits down, how he worded questions. And some of them are he had the big don't. Like sometimes he wasn't asking questions, but he was having a conversation. But yeah, it was at the end. LeBatard said it great. He's like, can you put it into practical terms and keep it simple? What it was like what it's like to work with Mike McDaniels compared to what you dealt with Brian Flores. And this is what Tua said, quote, to put it in the simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you shouldn't have earned this right. And then if somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? That's what he said to Dan LeBatard. I watched that sit-down interview. It was a quick 21, 22 minutes. I'm critical of Tua Tagovailoa. I call him a game manager. I call him a system quarterback, but he's great in that system. And that's why I said he deserves to get paid. He is the guy for Miami. Mike McDaniel believes in him. And he executes that system at such a high level that you can be a system quarterback, but if you're great in your situation, you can make a long career out of it. But hearing him talk and the stuff he's been through, I loved hearing Tua open up about that. And without saying this is how bad of a player's coach Brian Flores is. Because being a good coach is knowing how to manage personalities. And people are coming out and saying, well, Tua's soft. He played for Nick Saban. 3 weeks, a month after Nick Saban retired, Tua Tagovailoa was golfing with Nick Saban.
Wow.
That says what Saban thinks of him. Saban is a psycho. He will lose it on a backup quarterback or center when up 53 points on an opponent because he demands greatness. Tua was able to work with that. He can deal with hard coaching. This quote jumps out to me of just Tua pointing out. And I think anyone has to think that. Imagine every day you wake up in a work relationship, personal relationship, and someone goes, you suck. You're not a good partner. You're not a good quarterback. You're not a good sportscaster. You're not a good teacher, right? If a principal's coming to you, whatever. You suck. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing. It's going to ruin your confidence. And there was a breaking point. Tua and Brian Flores. They were down 17-3 to Titans at halftime, I believe. Maybe it was worse. And Tua blew up on Flores, calling him out. You don't know how to communicate to us. You don't know how to talk to us. Calling him out for being a bad head coach. And why Brian Flores was fired, coming from ownership, was communication issues that Brian Flores had. So I just love Tua pointing this out. People saying that he's soft. And it's all these quarterbacks today, how soft they are. Just miss me with that. Tua played for Nick effing Saban, who Bill Belichick loves.
Right.
He can deal with the hard coaching. It's really, really simple. Don't be a crappy human being. You can be a hard coach. I've been coached hard. I had a conversation, it was cool, last Thursday with one of the first producers I worked for, Trav. I was at Westwood One Radio. This producer called me out of the blue, catching up, man. And I remember I was a sophomore. I was blue. He would get in my ears. He would yell at me, right? I would mess up, and he would get on my ass. And then he would pull me aside and be like, you have to be a thoroughbred. He pointed out, you're at Seton Hall, man. You think these kids out of Syracuse aren't better than you? They are. He goes, you have to lock in and be better. I had a great conversation with him for a half hour, an hour on Thursday. I was texting him again this morning, ending text with love you, man. And I said to him, I go, I didn't know it then, but you were hard on me and I hated you, but I'm better now with how I deal with adversity, how I deal with people yelling at me, how I think on the fly and like solution-based thinking, right? Yep. It's all about that. But he was a good human end of the day, and he cared. You can care. You can be hard. Saban cares. He wants to win. You want that. You want that vindication from Kyle Shanahan, from Mike McDaniel. But be a decent effing human, man. Because Tua's looking and going, if I succeed, you succeed. Get off my ass and learn how to talk to me.
Right.
I went on a really long rant, bro. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But anyone saying Tua is soft is so wrong.
Well, first of all, I want to start here. I mean, one of the reasons you are where you are and you are who you are, even though you did get help along the way, you got mentorship, you got great guidance, you got great advice that you just share with us, and we appreciate you doing that. But let's not gloss over the fact that, George, I mean, you got that dog in you, okay? So it doesn't matter. Put you anywhere on God's green earth, you're going to make it happen because you got that dog. So I want to give you credit, first of all, for the work you've done. Secondly, I disagree with you here, but I'm not so far where the pendulum swings where I agree with the people calling Tua soft and all that. I'm right in the middle. Here's where. calling Tua soft is just ridiculous, okay? I mean, this guy got his hip ripped off of his body at Alabama and still came back to play in the NFL. Then we saw extremely scary concussions with Tua in the NFL, and he's still out there every Sunday making things happen. So calling Tua soft is ignorant. On your end of the pendulum, although I see what you're saying, I don't love Tua calling out Brian Flores, though. And the reason why is because Brian Flores has gone through a very well-documented, public, long road to try and get back to coaching again, head coaching again in this league. We know the lawsuit with the league over the racism. We know, he had to scratch and claw to even get coordinator looks. I remember Mike Tomlin gave him a chance there in Pittsburgh as a lesser coach, and then he worked his way back to now Minnesota, where he's doing a great job. And I do believe Brian Flores will get another opportunity as a head coach. But George, this doesn't help. And I think Tua, being the person that he is, we all know he's a great guy, God-fearing guy, all that. All that's great. But this was very like throwing Flores under the bus. And I get what you're saying, that, well, maybe Flores did not treat him accordingly and whatever. Cool. But that's in the past. Let bygones be bygones. I know we love these players opening up and giving us all the tea and all the stories and all that. It's great for our business. But in this case, I almost wish Tua professed his love for McDaniel and just say, hey, the Flores stuff is in the past. Let me tell you why I'm so great in this system, with everyone calling me a system quarterback. Let me tell you what McDaniel does for me, how he, gives me confidence when other coaches, let us figure out who you're talking about. Other coaches didn't necessarily do that. Take the high road. I wish he had done that, George. I don't like the direct shots he took at Brian Flores here, deserved or not. I wish Tua had taken the high road. I think with Brian Flores' path, you have to think of other people too sometimes, even if you don't like him. Flores is trying to get another head coaching gig. You don't ever have to play for him again, right? But, man, let that guy eat. Because these comments now, any owner or GM that was maybe considering, you know what, let's give this Flores guy another shot. He probably learned from his time in Miami. He's doing a hell of a job as a coordinator. You and I have talked about him on this show. So now you see these comments and it's like, well, Tua's got a point, or I don't want that, as talking to my quarterback. I wish he had taken the high road, George.
I'll never hate on an athlete being candid, and I understand you pointing out what Brian Flores went through, right? With him getting basically a faux interview with the Giants and finding out via that Bill Belichick text that Brian Dable got the job and all that, right?
Right.
But yeah, Brian Flores going through that doesn't justify him being a crappy human being to Tua Tagovailoa. And that's where he points out, it's these exact words. If you woke up every morning and someone said you suck at what you did, you don't belong doing what you do, you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here. If that's what it is, because Brian Flores didn't want Tua Tagovailoa. The franchise wanted him, and that's why that draft pick was made. Guess what, Brian? Guess what, bro? You're a head coach. You got to be a professional. You got to work with what you got. And obviously, that guy is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, talking about Tua Tagovailoa here. And if we go through what these guys have gone through in the past, you mentioned it. Tua got his hip ripped off of the bone. He had to deal with that awful ankle injury he had as well with tightrope surgery. Then he comes into the league. He gets yanked around and just no support at all from Flores and his staff and the Dolphins. Then when Mike McDaniel comes in and Tua, he gets tattoos and then he puts on weight, which was good for him to do to help him stay healthy. He took up MMA training to learn how to fall. Then you go into the media, and there was that, I forget what it was. Maybe it was First Take or whatever. I remember last offseason, literally all of them sitting around laughing at him because he has a big ass, which you need a big base for a football player, and tattoos, right? If he spent less time eating and less time getting tattoos, then Tua came out. It's like, keep my name out your mouth because his tattoo is for his kid. He put on weight to play. I think
Yep.
this is a kid that has that FU energy now, which I love. Of he's done because he was the ukulele playing,
Yep.
Mahalo, Polynesian kid, good
Yep.
vibes coming out of Bama, friends with everyone, right? And people took advantage of that, and he became a punching bag. I think now he's eyes on fire, going for whatever, doesn't care who pisses off. You're either with me or you're not, and that's where he's getting his motivation from. Yes, of
Yeah.
course, he could take the high road and been like, you know what? Imagine having a coach that really never, I feel like, believed in me, going to Mike
Right.
McDaniels, where I feel the vindication in his play calling. But I just love that true, honest, transparent, just candid answer from him.
Yeah.
And you know what, man? If Flores wakes up and sees that, and this forces him to adjust to become a better head coach, because Tua was probably never comfortable enough to say that to his face, or it sounds like he did, but Flores didn't take it to heart, and maybe he's changed now. But you come out and say something like this in public, if it makes Brian Flores a better head coach because of how he handles his players, then good for Tua, and this is good for Brian Flores.
George, you know what else will make you more bold? Money, baby. I mean,
He
Tua
does. I
can
got
say
the
whatever
bag,
he wants.
Brian. I'm a starting quarterback, Brian. Where are you? I'm in South Beach, baby. Oh, you're freezing your ass off in Minnesota? Look at me. What's your job going to be? Going to New Orleans? Good luck with that. I'm getting paid. That'll always make you bold, bro. I can't disagree with that. He got the bag and he's going FU tour on everyone.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. All right, let's get into our Ness and Mount Rushmore. We got cornerbacks. I'm going to do this one different, Trav. Give me your cornerback, Mount Rushmore.
Oh, Dion, Darrelle Revis,
Cool.
Champ Bailey, Rod Woodson.
Woohoo! We got the same four.
I mean, that's a right four. That's why.
Darrelle Revis, 2009, is arguably the most dominant season I've seen from any athlete in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Andre Johnson, Randy Moss twice, Marquise Colston, Terrell Owens twice, Torrey Holt, Steve Smith, Reggie Wayne, all held under 35 yards. Chad Johnson, 0 catches in the regular season, then shut him down the following week.
Yep.
Would run routes for the receivers, insane IQ. Champ Bailey, I'm going to go off this one quote, Trav. Steve Smith said this about Champ Bailey. If I lined up in the slot, he lined up in the slot. If I lined up at running back, he would line up as linebacker. If I parked my car in the parking lot, he was the parking attendant. Champ Bailey lined up everywhere. That just says it about him, bro.
Yep. They don't make them like that anymore. Now guys are system, just like we talk about these quarterbacks, they're system defensive backs too. Rod Woodson's another one, man, like in his prime, absolute dog. And then as he got older, you know, he came over to Baltimore. They moved him to safety, and he was still an absolute animal. All these guys can play. You know, where I grew up, Darryl Green would have been on this list, but Darryl Green was undersized. These guys are all big dudes too. Darryl Green, you know, I got to knock him a little bit because of the size there, even though he played bigger. I would also say Charles Woodson is on my honorable mention as well. Absolute shutdown corner, and then moved to safety late in his career as well. I'd probably have him at number 5, to be honest with you, George, Charles Woodson. But these four, we have Dion, Darrelle, Revis, Rod Woodson, and Champ Bailey. It's the correct answer. That's it. For this position, that's who it is.
Rod Woodson, he would always lay the wood, can hit like a mother effer, third all-time in interceptions. I mean, he was great for the Steelers. And then primetime, man, he would bait quarterbacks into throws where they're like, he shouldn't be there. Like there's his closing speed, his athleticism, and what he would do with the ball in his hands too, man. Punt returns or on pick sixes. So then here's the Mount Rushmore from Nesson. We asked Nesson.com writers, on-air talent producers to vote on the 4 greatest cornerbacks of all time. Deion Sanders, Darrelle Revis, Rod Woodson, Champ Bailey. I didn't know the top 4.
It's the only
it was
right
in my
answer.
notes, but I put mine. Yeah. Look at that. Unanimous. We can say it now. The unanimous cornerback Mount Rushmore is Darrelle Revis, Champ Bailey, Rod Woodson, and primetime Deion Sanders.
Hey, congrats, everyone. We all know ball. All of us. Let's go, baby.
We all know ball, wherever to get the most you want to know on ball right here. Foxboro Rush, everything Patriots. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Balekji. If you're listening, like, subscribe, rate, and review, please. Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. If you're watching on Nesson's YouTube or Twitch, hit the subscribe button as well. And leave a comment on the episode. I'll go back. I'll look at the comments time to time. If you put a good question, we'll bring it onto the show. He's Double T. I'm GB. We'll see you guys Friday morning.